What's up, EOS Universe? Rob and I went a little bit long this week, so we're going to give you part one of a two-part series today. And I promise you will not be disappointed. We talk Tapatalk and TapX, Effect.AI, the mass migration of projects coming to EOS, and our predictions for who is next. If you like the show, don't forget to click the like button, subscribe, and the bell, and take care of my sponsor, Cypherglass. Vote for them with your favorite wallet or block explorer. All right, everybody, we're back with a very special edition of Everything EOS this week. We have Rob Finch in person.
I took the EOS 21 teleportation protocol and I came over here, so good to be back. I'm in the Berg for a couple days, so I thought we'd do an episode in person like the good old days.
And he was referring to Katzberg for anyone who's not familiar with the lingo.
Yep.
But we've got a ton of bullish news.
Oh, yeah.
But you have some bullish news of your own with Cypherglass and EOS Name Service. So why don't we get that out of the way, and then we'll run through the other stuff.
Yeah, so real quick, if you're a fan of all the custom account names that we've been doing on EOSNameService.io, we now have .com, .eos.io, .bank, and .games are all available on the website now. It's a little bit different in that you have to actually bid for the names. You're bidding against a bunch of other people, but all of the rules and the details are on the site. So EOSNameService.io, check out our referral program.
All right, so I noticed Cypherglass. I saw you guys are going tweet crazy because you're within 500,000 votes
so
right now of being in the top 21.
Yeah.
But I thought it was interesting, the story you told me the other day. I didn't put it in the notes here, but you said you actually got into the top 21 and produced a couple of blocks?
Yeah, so I think this was either yesterday or the day before, but anyway, sometime this week, Bitfinex was shifting around their proxies, and we actually picked up another 3 million votes from Bitfinex, which jumped us up to 20 very briefly for about 2 rounds, which was a couple minutes on the EOS blockchain. Our infrastructure produced flawlessly. Nobody was there to sort of monitor it when it was up, and it all worked really well. So we're excited to see that. And then as they added the other proxy votes, we came down a little bit, and now we're back at, I think, 24, but less than 500,000 votes away. So if you're out there, you vote for Cypherglass, or if you don't, please go out and vote for us for the first time, or refresh your vote so that that decay will go away and we can get back in the top 21.
Or if you want to defer your vote to a proxy, there's many good proxies out there that do already vote for Cypherglass. So there's Colin T Crypto, there's iWad, Freedom Proxy, Brock Pierce 1 Proxy. All great proxies. They support a lot of other good block producers and referendums. So if you don't want to micromanage your governance, I highly recommend use a proxy. And in addition to that, a few releases ago on Scatter, I actually started using a proxy myself. I'm full transparency. I proxied my votes to Brock Pierce 1.
Nice.
And
that's a good one.
The reason behind my decision was because in Scatter Desktop, they added a recurring vote feature only if you're voting for a proxy. So every 7 days, it refreshes your vote so that it doesn't decay.
Huh.
You want to, I guess, explain decay for some people that aren't familiar?
Yeah, so right now, basically to incentivize you to continue to participate in the governance process and reevaluate who you vote for, your voting power decays or goes away by about 1% per week. So if I have 100 tokens and I vote them to Cypherglass, next week it'll only count as 99 out of those 100 tokens, and the week after, 98, 97. So over time, a lot of those votes go away, and that's why we need you to go out and vote for us again so that that decay will go away and you'll go back up to 100%.
Yeah, so for the longest time after mainnet launch, I set my votes. I would let it go a couple weeks. Like I didn't let it decay to like nothing. Obviously, it would take a couple years for that to happen. But I would find myself, it's just something in the back of my mind to think of. And I'm trying to follow everything going on in EOS. I do follow the governance, but I know that there's other people that follow it even closer.
Definitely.
So I love the idea of proxies. I think they're going to play a bigger part in our ecosystem as we move forward. But I'm going to go out of order in our notes here a little bit because I didn't plan to mention how you guys got into the top 21.
Yeah.
Wasn't that fluctuation in votes the same thing that caused Games.EOS to get into the top 21, and then that created all of the blacklisting stuff?
I believe,
why don't we jump to that part, then we'll get into the good news.
Yeah, so for a brief moment in time, I think they picked up another 6 million votes or something like that from not any of the Bitfinex proxies. I'm not sure which proxy it was or which account it was, but they basically popped into the top 21 and didn't have any of their blacklists configured. So somebody that had been blacklisted because their account was hacked, they cryptographically proved they own the Ethereum address associated with the EOS address. So BPs have never frozen an account without the full cryptographic proof and permission of the actual account owner. But in this case, unfortunately, because all 21 BPs have to have the blacklist, if one doesn't, that transaction can still go through. So that 2.09 million EOS was sent to an exchange, but don't buy the FUD. There are so many articles saying EOS has been hacked. There's a hack on EOS. No, it hasn't. If one person loses their keys on Bitcoin, the Bitcoin network has not been hacked. It's the same thing on EOS. It was one person lost their keys. Now,
and in addition to that, as much as we in the Western side of the world bash Huobi a lot for different practices on the EOS network, their exchange is actually the one that put a stop to a lot of these assets moving around.
Yeah.
So the wallets became unlocked because one of the top 21 didn't have these accounts blacklisted from back in the days of ECAF. So this is like a legacy blacklist here.
Yeah, it doesn't happen anymore. All future blacklists have been rejected by the block producers because it's pretty obvious the community doesn't want ECAF as well. So we're not blacklisting anymore.
And I'm not 100%, but this may have been the first time Games.EOS was in the top 21. I don't know.
I think it was.
So they just didn't have a blacklist. But so the funds started moving and they were caught immediately. Someone must have had notifications set up.
Yeah.
Thank you, whoever had that.
Yeah, thank you, Huobi. I imagine they probably have the whole blacklist and they say, oh, when a transaction comes from this into our exchange,
so the token started moving to Huobi, and Huobi's like, nope. I mean, that's one advantage of a centralized exchange. I mean, we talk about decentralize everything, but there are obvious perks to centralization.
Definitely.
This saves some funds. But if we had a very liquid DEX, those funds maybe could have been washed and sold. But in this instance, everything was saved. So onward and upward.
Definitely.
So we have so much good news, though. So that was
so much
the only sore spot of the day, and it had a somewhat happy ending.
Well, and as a reminder, if you guys see articles like that on Twitter, hashtag EOS FUD, F-U-D, and you'll have an army of people come and sort of present facts, present videos and stuff to teach that person what's really going on.
Tapatalk. You've done a video on him. I'll just say that, and you can get into it.
300 million users. Ooh. 300 million. Ooh. Ooh. Oh, here they come. Here come the glasses.
300 million.
It's happening again. So just imagine, these are 300 million users. We're not saying they're all going to come to EOS, but these are 300 million people who are using a platform that is building part of their platform on EOS and will then have a chance to be exposed to the EOS ecosystem, a chance to make their own account, a chance to get more involved in the other dApps that are using EOS as well. So essentially what Tapatalk is, they're launching this new program under TapX, and it's tapx.io, tapx.io if you want to see it.
What is with adding X for all these EOS projects? Bancor became Bancor X. Zimbra, the enterprise email platform building on EOS. Hey, kitty. Became Zimbra X for the blockchain platform. We got another one, TapX.
Yeah, I think X just seems to be cool. If you want a .x name, EOSNameService.io.
Ooh, nice plug.
Yeah,
use the Everything EOS referral code.
Yeah, exactly.
In the description.
But essentially, these people run, the
Everything Cats.
Yeah, everythingcats.com. The whole controversy here has been, do they really have 300 million users? And the answer is yes. Tapatalk is very popular forum software. They run more than 200,000 forums online. And across those 200,000 forums, they have those 300 million users. So it is those users that will now be using this new sort of forum upgrade, you could kind of call it. They're integrating a bunch of different pieces. It's not just a reward system like I thought initially. It looks like they're doing identity, they're doing payments, they're doing sub tokens for each of these individual communities, all on EOS. So super exciting, and the amount of users is just insane.
And they have some pretty notable advisors on their website too. On your video, you mentioned a few of them. You want to run through them?
Sam Kasminian from Everopedia, who I'm sure is part of the reason why they're actually building on EOS. But then also another notable name, Vinny Lingham, a man who loves to eat on podcasts when he's recording them.
That's a story for another day. But Vinny Lingham, he's a pretty notable entrepreneur outside of blockchain. But in blockchain, he's been working on a project called Civic that has a decentralized identity solution. We'll get back into this in a little bit. But let's wrap up the Tapatalk with they have a contract on the Jungle testnet that was deployed 3 months ago.
Yeah,
so
pretty crazy.
They've been working on EOS.
Oh, they've clearly been building a lot. And if you check out the account, I don't know if we can put a link to that or not if we want to
to the jungle?
To the jungle.
Yeah, I'll put it in the description.
Put a link in the description to the jungle contract. You can go test it out. It looks like they're testing a lot of the sub-token functionality. They have a bunch of different token contracts. They're sending them around, doing little different transactions. So it's going to be awesome. Imagine if each of these 200,000 forums made their own custom sub-token on EOS to reward people, to incentivize them to do good content, to add into their whole reputation management system that they're coming out with. So very exciting.
I'm excited. I mean, social always gets me excited.
Yeah.
So last week we had the Larry Sanger and Dan Larimer talking about decentralized social media. This is decentralized forum communities. I don't know the word for them, but I've been part of many of them over the years with different interests of mine. Whatever your interest is, you could be in the race cars. There's all these race car communities and forums. And that's kind of where Tapatalk.
It's a cat on the green screen.
Uh-oh. That's kind of what Tapatalk is. But moving along, there was another really big project.
Yeah.
So Tapatalk just kind of came out of nowhere. They weren't really building. They didn't announce that they were already building on a different platform. So it's not like a migration. It's just a huge mainstream product that said they want to come to EOS because they're moving forward on their blockchain initiative. This next project is the most widely adopted project with the most users on the Neo platform. I'm talking about Effect.AI, and you did a video on them also. Yeah. So this is another big project.
Yeah, if you want to learn any more about these, head over to youtube.com/cypherglass, and you can check out the videos. But Effect.AI was Neo's most popular dapp, moving to EOS, and they specifically cited reasons why, that Neo just doesn't cut it for their application. It's not going to be scalable enough. I'm sure the transaction fees are an issue on Neo as well, which is something we've been saying since this podcast started, that if you have transaction fees in your dapp, people are not going to want to use it. So it's so cool to see them come to EOS.
I'm an old school Neo lover too, man. I used to have Ant shares. I still do have a little bit of Neo, but man, I always see like the 7 nodes that they have and like the lack of decentralization. Then seeing what the team at Effect.AI said about Neo, I trust these guys' opinions. I liked their story about how they actually became involved with EOS. Do you want to cover that, or you want me?
I think that's you.
So I have it in my notes here, and they did a video on it where they actually came to the London Hackathon as mentors.
Really?
From not even, because they're blockchain engineers, they just weren't EOS. But they said that they were considering Ethereum, Komodo, Tezos before settling on EOS. And they said that what led to their decision it was the technical capabilities, but it was the community. They were just so impressed. And we've been to
it makes so much
the hackathons.
Sense.
It's just that energy.
Oh,
It's undescribable at these hackathons. And I hope we get hackathons again in 2019.
I hope so.
I think we will. I hope we will.
I think it's inevitable. I think that there was so much exposure that EOS got in general, and so many projects coming out of that. You look at Nougat, who's presenting at the EOS New York event this week. That's a great project that came out of the hackathon that wouldn't have existed at all if it wasn't for that series. So I know it's a lot of work for the Block.One team. It sort of consumes their PR efforts, but if you're out there listening, I think the hackathon's are a great idea, even if it's later this year.
Continuing on with Effect.AI.
Yeah.
So I did some digging into like what it was. So at first I watched your video, which was a great resource, just surface level. But then I dove in deeper.
Yeah.
Because I remembered reading comparisons to. So I knew they were an AI product, but I also read previously, whenever I knew them as a Neo project, as having a mechanical Turk or mTurk like product, which is a service that Amazon offers.
Yeah.
And they have micro services and micro work. Do you want to explain like what that means?
Yeah. So essentially, if you have some kind of task where you want to pay per task a very, very small amount, say a fraction of a penny or a penny per task, usually data entry. Hey, I need you to take the data out of this unformatted piece of paper or this unformatted document and, insert it into a spreadsheet so that it's all organized. You would pay somebody on Mechanical Turk, per cell that they input, and you kind of send that out to a bunch of humans. So they say mechanical, but it's a bunch of real humans entering all this data.
So it's like robot-like work, but that only a human can do. So I wrote a few examples down. So I think it's funny. This cat on the table, actually, this white fluffy one, Google Photos has the best algorithm. It can detect what kind of animals. It knows my pet's names. It like recognizes them.
Oh, that's spooky.
But it thinks this cat right here is a dog. All the other cats are cats, but this one's a dog.
That's so interesting.
And that's because it's big and fluffy, so it messed up their algorithm. But those algorithms don't just happen by chance.
Yeah.
They happen over a long period of time. And for like facial recognition, tools like Facebook, where you're identifying your friends and it says, okay, all these different angles of faces is the same person, it gets smarter.
Right.
So an example would be if you could have thousands of humans just looking at pictures and saying whether or not there's a cat in the picture, and it could try to trick them. It could show them a bear and they'll say no. So it's just training a computer algorithm to do certain things, or maybe it's a text to speech AI thing, and it can't decipher certain words. So maybe it listens to an hour-long speech and it doesn't know what 5% of the words are. So it needs this army of mechanical Turk workers to do these micro tasks. And
well, and that's called effect force. So it's like in the video on the Cyberglass channel, it kind of breaks it down into the different aspects of the platform and what they're actually making. And effect force is just that. You know, you can train an AI algorithm with a bunch of people.
Yeah. So this is something that mTurk's really big on Amazon, but there's issues with it. So one is the work is very, very low paying. So we're talking like hundredths of a penny per task. So
it's kind of nuts.
It's really only geared towards, I don't know, poor people, children. I don't know who the target demographic is.
But if you think about, I think it's generally people in other countries where if $6, if you're in Venezuela and $10 a month is the average wage there, something like this may actually be pretty, pretty appealing when you can sit at home and make that kind of money.
So why would we want to do something that Amazon's already doing? And the answer is Amazon's taking a 40% cut of these already tiny payments.
40%?
So like, yeah, take a profit, but 40%, that's like Apple, that's like App Store like level atrocity.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So there's that issue. So you have this fraction of a penny you're earning for this micro task, and then it's getting slashed by 40% immediately. And then additionally, because of the cost to transfer money across borders, there's always a minimum withdrawal. So let's say you're in Venezuela, you just want to make these $6. Like that could buy you food for a month, let's say. But the minimum withdrawal is probably $100 or $50. So they want so the work is only really geared towards someone's really, really poor. We're not going to be doing this work. So it's geared towards these people, but then for them to make an income, you have to expect them to basically work for free for a very long time until they meet this minimum threshold. Whereas using cryptocurrency, it's peer-to-peer. You're paying.
Well, you could even
instantaneously.
With the right system, you could honestly set it up with a micropayment where you're sending them that 0.001 EOS per transaction, or maybe every 10 transactions it pays you out, and then you don't have to worry about it. I mean, those people are going to be waiting a year or something to get their payments. That's nuts.
So one potential issue with a service like an mTurk on a decentralized system is you kind of need reputation and identity. Because you could game the system. You can game a lot of systems, and this is one that you can game and fake the work because the AI is relying on a human to give them the right answer. So the AI doesn't know the answer, so it's going by what the human input is. So you could really mess up the system. And fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. So you need an identity and reputation layer, and there's a lot of projects working on it. We hear about Riddle with Scatter, but we're going to come back to the man's name, Vinny Lingham, from Civic. This is an Ethereum project, mind you, and I don't know more than what I'm talking about on this show, but going back to June 2018, Effect.AI already announced their partnership with Civic for their identity layer. Now, at the time, they were on Ethereum, but they're coming to EOS now. So doesn't that somewhat mean that it might not be a Civic thing, maybe Effect.AI is porting it, but in some way, Civic, identity layer, solution, whatever you want to call it, if Effect Force is coming to EOS, then that means some sort of identity layer with Civic.
100%. I think it's only logical that Civic eventually moves to the EOS mainnet, and I think that project has so much potential, and I think a lot of that really did get, like so many other Ethereum projects, it got kind of stunted by the fact that Ethereum just can't scale. So Civic, they had a couple ICOs that were using their project, or their product rather, but from that point on, I think that was late 2017, we really never heard of any other, Civic integrations. And for them to come to EOS, there are so many projects that work, so many projects that scale, that need something like that. They need that identity layer. Tapatalk is a great one that is probably using Civic as well.
Just in case you missed that part where I tied it back in, Tapatalk, one of their advisors is Vinny Lingham, the CEO of Civic, which is an Ethereum identity solution. And they're probably the ones that are furthest along on it. They're not the first people to try to solve this identity thing. But I know at the Consensus conference in New York, they had these, I think they're Budweiser beer machines, and you needed to use your Civic ID to get your beer.
Oh, to prove you're 21.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And working for over a year or two in the ICO industry, I knew the first time I used Civic was for the ZRX ICO that I participated in, and I had to use Civic.
Same.
And that actually led to a lot of adoption with it. And I mean, it crashed 90% just like everything else. But it has a solid team behind it. And they've recently acquired in the last year Identity.com. And that's actually a really big, I think it's like a separate project, but it's like built on top of Civic's platform.
Really?
So I'm excited to see this because I'm not saying Civic's going to migrate to EOS, but they might turn into one of those projects that are cross-platform, like a Bancor X.
I mean, at the end of the day, Civic is a business, and the more potential customers that they can reach, EOS being a huge set of those potential customers, the better for them and their business and their token holders. So it really only makes sense.
One more conspiracy. Vinny Lingham's a partner at Multi-Coin Capital.
Oh, really?
And that might mean nothing. It probably means nothing.
We know based on their thesis and that whole letter they put out, EOS is one of their big holdings. So it makes sense. He's definitely hedged into EOS, I'm sure. It's hard to ignore what's happening in the EOS ecosystem when you see the usage statistics. You see the amount of dApps and projects that are now moving over to EOS, the amount of projects that are building on a blockchain for the first time and choosing EOS as that blockchain. So it's just so exciting, everything that's happening. There's so much going on.
So before we wrap up talking about Effect Force, which is on Effect.AI, which is the Neo project migrating to EOS, the thing that has me excited about the way that I guess the product works is I love projects like what Effect.AI is doing with Effect Force, because it reminds me of, even though it's completely different, it reminds me of Steemit, where you can create value from your own talent, skill set, or time. And you're able to earn income through some sort of inflationary mechanism or reward mechanism within the system itself. Because what this does is it creates this opportunity that never existed before. You mentioned Venezuela. There's all of these countries in Africa where there's these people. There's no difference between me, Rob, and some poor person living in somewhere like Kenya. The only difference is opportunity. We have opportunity and they don't. Well, it's about to get balanced because all they need for that opportunity is this. If you have this, and if you have an internet connection, which a lot of people are also trying to solve in countries like that.
And so many already do with the M-Pesa program that the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation have been instrumental in sort of putting out there. So many people there now have phones that are connected to the internet in some way. Granted, it's not a 4G connection, but they can still get online.
So with a cell phone, you can now have an income opportunity that you never had. Maybe it's only $5 a month, but if you're just taking care of like 7 kids, and you have no other opportunities, that's amazing. That could put food on your table. And stuff like mTurk not always existed, but it existed for a long time. But this is just opening it up. It's removing the borders. And it's making micropayments possible, because that hurdle I mentioned where you have to have that minimum deposit. It's
absolutely.
Like working for free for the longest time.
And even not just that. I mean, Mechanical Turk and Amazon referrals, all of the sort of ways you make income on Amazon, you need a bank account, ultimately. And none of these people in any of these countries have any kind of banking infrastructure.
The unbanked.
So, I mean, there's no way for them to get that payment. Even if they make it to the $100 threshold after 6 months, they're not going to get that payment because they don't have a bank to put it in.
Exactly.
And if they do, they're going to pay a massive currency conversion fee to put in their local currency and then have to withdraw it. It solves so many issues to make all of this on a blockchain.
I don't care if it's Effect.AI that does it or someone else that does it, but I want to see services like this that give income opportunities to the disadvantaged.
Oh, absolutely.
Because it's not work that we're going to be doing, but it's work that needs to be done, and it's going to make our systems and programs work better and smarter.
Well, I think there are even higher tiers of the gig economy. The gig economy, just to clarify what I said, where essentially there are people, whether you're doing graphic design or writing or whatever it is, they're working on Upwork or these other sites. There are going to be more and more people doing that in the future, especially as more of these typical jobs get automated away. So
yeah, I mean, I gave all of these very simple examples, like is it a dog or a cat on a picture?
Right.
But you could advance it. Like we could decentralize. We've talked about arbitration. If you had like a decentralized arbitration system, you'd have all of these like certified in some way arbitrators who are all like independent. It's like all these independent businesses,
right? And
they're just like randomly selected for transactions to arbitrate. So they basically, this is a skill to be able to sift through evidence, listen to the case. It's like almost being like an arbitrator.
Kind of like you're a judge.
Yeah. And there's all kinds of other like higher skilled jobs. Like you could be a translator. I mean, contracting work over the internet's nothing new. It's just, I think the micropayments is what makes us different, because micropayments and not having a bank account. So this is like the subset.
It's the micropayments and the access, giving people access to actually get that money.
And I think that's why I didn't think of the like higher skill set jobs at first, because typically I'm thinking that you would have a bank account maybe.
Exactly. Those people already have access to the right financial infrastructure to get the payments out, but some of these people don't.
So 2 applications, giant app.
Yeah.
Well, one's a giant application on a platform, 2,000 users, which isn't a small number,
Right.
but it's like far in its development roadmap. I think it's been over a year now that they've been working on it,
Something
a year
like
and a half.
that, yeah, it's been a while.
So it's a pretty established product with a very established team. You said you talked to the founder recently?
Yeah, we were supposed to have a meeting this week, but first I had to reschedule, then he had to reschedule, so we're talking next week now. But Chris, if you're out there, looking forward to speaking.
I'm curious to hear more about their story on how they got here. Because
Yeah, same.
the decision didn't come easily, I'm sure, and I want to hear.
Well, that's one of the things. I talk to so many people, so many projects. I do free consulting calls. I'll meet somebody, in New York or somewhere else, and they'll say, hey, we're building on Ethereum. We're having all these issues. We're running into transaction fees. We're trying to batch transactions on a side chain and send it in. And I say, let me have a call with you and your tech guy.
God.
And when I get them on the phone, they have that concern. It's not an easy decision because they've poured 6 months or a year and a half into trying to solve these problems on Ethereum. And to build on EOS, generally they do have to scrap it and start over. But when they realize, oh, we can rebuild what took us a year to build on Ethereum in a month on EOS, and then in the future it's going to actually work, they're generally very open to the decision.
Well, we're very open and welcoming to any Neo projects and especially Ethereum projects that want to come over to EOS.
Yeah.
So I recommend we have EOSIO Band-Aids straight from the EOS Hackathon.
Oh yeah, official.
To package up your wounds. We got tissues somewhere on the floor somewhere.
Yep.
Stop crying.
As the
bite the bullet and come over to the good guy side.
Come to EOS. Just do it.
And it's getting easier by the day.
Yep.
So we've talked extensively about the team at Shios and Sense about their EOS 21 teleportation protocol. And that's a one-way relay. It could be developed further to be a two-way, but for their specific purpose, they're not going back to Ethereum. They're not doing something that would require them to be on both chains, like a Bancor, for example. But there are a lot of projects that would want to be on both chains. And a project just announced a new initiative this week, and it's a big Ethereum project. Kyber Network announces what's called Waterloo, which is the EOS to Ethereum bridge.
Yeah.
So for those who weren't part of the 2017 big rush of the Ethereum dexes, Kyber Network and ZRX both basically came out at the same time, and they were like the Ethereum darlings for decentralized exchanges.
Yeah.
But you think of what you need for an exchange, you need these fast, lightning fast, like very low or zero fee transactions.
Yeah.
It's just, when you were talking about all these side chains and like all these
batching transactions,
hacky ways to make things scale, that's what projects like Kyber and probably what ZRX are dealing with, and probably dozens, if not hundreds, of Ethereum projects that we don't even think about or know about, that they're running into these problems, but we could assume they are. So this EOS Ethereum bridge is, and I quote this from their blog post, the Waterloo bridge will enable cross-chain communication between the two blockchains and will enable the transfer of assets from Ethereum to EOS and vice versa. Such cross-chain interoperability is a long-standing ambitious goal in the blockchain ecosystem in the last several years, with potential applications in finance, scalability, and privacy.
Yeah.
So I like how this project, I don't think they're moving to EOS. It sounds like they're trying to build upon something like what Bancor X has been able to accomplish with this cross-chain liquidity between tokens.
Right.
But they're taking it a step further. They're eliminating the central party, like the Bancor, working the relays. They're trying to make a trustless relay.
Right.
And I don't think it's completely done yet, but it just stands out so much to me because there's just so much about this that like highlights it for me. And the fact that it's Kyber. So you were part of the ICO bull run. So was I. So is a lot of our viewers and listeners.
Yeah.
During that run, there is always issues of people fraudulently being added as advisors to different ICO projects to give them credibility that
we just added Vitalik to our project over here. Please buy our coin. It's going to go up 400%.
So at the time in 2017, Vitalik was getting added to projects as an advisor that he didn't agree to, probably because some guy saw him at a conference and shook his hands like, we're partners. Yeah,
or they have a photo of the founder with Vitalik. That was always the typical one.
So I remember this distinctively. Vitalik put a tweet out, and I'm sure I'll have a graphic by the time we publish this.
Yeah.
He said, I only advise for 2 projects, Omise Go and Kyber.